Meeting to order. First item on our agenda this evening is public meeting discussion regarding the use of the land at the corner of Church and Stony Battery Road. So we will open it up to public comment. First order of business, I would say, is anyone that has something to say, if you could please state your first and last name for the minutes, and we will open it up to public comment.
So Mr. Lundy, if I could just kind of briefly go through things. I know some were here last meeting, others weren't. This is the second of two meetings, public meetings, to discuss the potential rezoning of the corner property at the Four Seasons at the corner of Stony Battery and Church Street. The authority was created in 2019 by the Board of Supervisors. They were given control of the 126-acre golf course property for the purpose of making Four Seasons golf property profitable. Just share the screen here. There is a graph that shows the financial status right now of where the golf course is. Here. So that's the area that is being proposed for rezoning. This screenshot shows what the financial picture of the Four Seasons looks like. So the graph from 89 to 2011, there was mortgage on the property, which is why the red line is above the blue line. The red line is expenses, the blue line is revenues, and then the bottom line is the township subsidy for those time periods. So in 2012 to 2020, the income was supplemented after the mortgage was paid for. So the operations of the Four Seasons did not cover the expenses at that point in time. From 2020 to 22, the trend has turned, and now revenues are starting to cover expenses. This is primarily due to the blue collar taking over the banquet and the snack bar operations. And they opened the restaurant in 2021, and their business has been growing. The Recreation Authority is looking at the next revenue stream, but all uses come back to something commercial. And the space at the corner of the property is the ideal location for a potential commercial use. The ideas regarding what to do to continue to increase the revenue stream for the property has been explored since 2017. The zoning on the property, the 126 acres, is park and open space, recreation and open space, but by definition does not allow commercial. So an expansion of the building uses in the existing building structure is questionable if that can be expanded, something outside of what's related to the golf operations that have been taking place there. So before the authority ventures down the road of rezoning the corner property, they wanted to reach out to the community to seek the input, which is why you've all hopefully come tonight. The community business center zoning would be the zoning of choice and would encompass the commercial uses that have been discussed by the authority for the past several years. So from that point, if you want to open it up for public comment.
Also want to make sure everyone understands nothing has been decided. We don't have a plan, and we're hoping you're going to buy into it. This session and the one we held last month was an idea that we thought was valuable to ask you, your input. What types of things should we be considering? Maybe things that we have not. So that is what we're looking for tonight in terms of public comment. It's not really a question and answer session, a give and take. It's more just to get a sense of your feelings and what you would like to see done.
Agreed. We've had many different meetings over the last 4 years about what to do with the golf course property as well as the parcels. And there have been many ideas that have been floated, presentations that have been made. And I would say as far as how far we've gotten with any of them, blue collar was the most viable option, at least for the restaurant and banquet facility. As far as the development of any other parcels, we haven't really had a lot of concrete ideas on what to do with them, which is why we wanted to open it up to zoning to see if we could figure out what it was that would enhance revenue for the property, as well as hopefully give the community something that that would be better for them. So instead of what is there currently. So we're brainstorming now and love to hear any ideas or comments.
So the map that you have up on the screen now is simply placeholders to give us ideas of what could potentially be done with the corner property. And what's depicted here is a convenience store and a commercial building. They're just placeholders. Nothing has been decided on. It just gives you a concept of what the property could hold.
I'm Chris Hausner. So my question is, don't you have to know what you intend to use the property for before you rezone it? I mean, how do you decide what the zoning classification should be if you don't?
The conversations we've had with various developers and people that have expressed interest is commercial. So the zoning that currently exists on the property does not allow commercial.
Okay, so the placeholders that are up here, a building and a convenience store would both be covered uses under the zoning category of commercial.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to make a comment?
Well, I will make a comment or two. I'm not sure that I agree totally with premises. I have to speak at this microphone or that microphone, it doesn't matter. I think the golf course was.
Could you please identify yourself?
And my name is Susan McMullen. I live at 832 Christine Lane. I live in the Indian Springs development that's next to the golf course, though I don't live right adjacent to the golf course. I think that I think the golf course was cash flowing prior to blue collar coming in. There was a lot of depreciation in the statements previously. Depreciation being a non-cash expense, I don't really think that the township was subsidizing it to the extent that it looks as though you were provided in the financial reports that I've seen here. I agree with Mrs. Hausner. Without knowing what's going into that corner, I think you're putting the cart before the horse to rezone it. I think that corner, my understanding was that when the golf course was acquired from, I don't know if it was acquired directly from Guerin or exactly who owned it before, but I thought that it was to be recreational and open space. And there used to be a miniature golf course on the corner. I think there were other recreational opportunities that you could make for that corner, aside from putting commercial buildings there. I would not, as a resident who has to come out this driveway that's on the very right side of your picture there, I would be opposed to having yet another entrance onto Stony Battery Road that close to the intersection where we have the traffic light. It's hard enough to get in and out of the intersections that we have. Just another intersection there doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I'm more in favor of having open space and more open space and recreation in the township. I have heard or seen in the minutes for the township board, supervisors board, that a lot of people have talked about pickleball courts. Wouldn't that be something that could go in there that's still a recreational opportunity. Not a moneymaker, I realize, unless you're going to charge for the pickleball courts. I have some other questions too, which are not directly related to this. So maybe you'll tell me to sit down and ask them later in the general public portion. But I thought earlier, one of the meetings that I came to, there was a lot of talk about a cell tower and revenue from a cell tower. Did that not come to fruition?
No, at one of the meetings, we did have someone present and the negotiations back and forth with the cell tower provider. The authority felt that the income coming in from that was negligible. So to put a cell tower for, I think it was $1,000 a month or less in rent, wasn't necessarily something that we wanted to continue.
Okay.
I don't remember the specific dollar amount, but it was on the lower side.
Well, I have other things to say about the driving range and a few other things too, but that's all I have to say about that rezoning. I just think you're putting the cart before the horse when you don't have any ideas about what might want to go in there.
Well, if I could just step in there, and certainly I think we appreciate your comments and what you're saying. I would like to correct the record, however, in addition to being on the Recreation Authority, I'm also on the Board of Supervisors and been involved with budgeting over the last 5 years of being on the board. And I can assure you that the golf course, year in and year out, ran a deficit that was subsidized by the taxpayers in this township. We made a decision to try and do something better and try to achieve at a minimum a break even. And we've done that at this point. Okay. But depreciation never, there's nothing to depreciate in a golf course. It's nothing more than land. And, but that's fine. So we've gotten it to the point now with this tenant that we have pushed revenues ahead of expenses, and we're trying to determine whether we want to move forward. That's all. As far as uses, we sit here thinking that a commercial or a use of some type would be the best benefit and generate the most income for the township. But it could be recreation. We're not saying we have to rezone it. It could be recreation if that's what the indication that we get from the community, and that makes sense. But all we're trying to do is get some ideas, and it's hard to sit down with a developer if he doesn't understand what you're trying to accomplish. So that's all we're trying to do, so we can communicate better with people who come along and have an interest in the property. We'll go from there. Okay.
Rezoning to commercial versus what it is now gives us more options as opposed to what we have right now. We can still have the non-commercial options if it's zoned commercial and put those things there. If we talk about a mini golf course, which has been an idea that we've discussed, the problem that we have from an authority standpoint is none of us are going to run that business. So we either ask Jim to do that or a township employee does that if it's a non-commercial entity. If it's a commercial entity, then they pay us a lease for that land and they run the business. However, they're going to be able to continue to turn their own profit. That's the problem. And we also don't have a budget for anything. So if we turn it into pickleball courts, that's something that we as an authority would have to then finance, which, you know, as you can see, the blue line is not significantly above the red line currently. So down the road, that's potentially an option. But right now, we don't have the funds to do anything like that. We've put in significant amount of money into that we borrowed from the township to update the HVAC system in the blue collar building, which was significant, as well as a hot water treatment system and several other things that, we had to basically borrow money from the township in order to do those things. So blue collar would be able to come in as a tenant. Other things we've talked about as far as how increasing financials on our end help is updated pro shop or, doing improvements to the golf course as far as, just having more funds available. At one of our meetings, we approved significant landscaping equipment for Joe, who does the all the maintenance on the golf property. So there was, I think $90,000 worth of equipment that we approved for that, as well as brand new carts. So all those things, we want to make sure that we have money flowing in, so we're able to deal with those expenses when they come and not have to rely on the township funneling money over to us, on a year by year basis. So that's really the base of why we're trying to look at other revenue generating options for the authority. So we just have more funds available for things for the golf course and property. So.
My name's Harry Worth, and I live in downtown Lancaster. After 35 years in Shadow Lane as a neighbor to the golf course, and I represent a large number of golfers at the golf course, some of them seniors that you might observe. And I'd like to speak later about the changes at the golf course, which we see the golf course management going in the wrong direction in the direction they've taken, and we have some suggestions. But first, I'd like to say that I think you're operating with a false premise that the golf course needs to be a profit center. Is Amos Herr Park a profit center? Is the park in East Petersburg, the one on Good Drive? Are you going to put a Sheets on the corner here at Amos Herr Park? I don't think it should cost you a lot of money. And we're not against the golf course making any money, and we like the restaurant. But this is a false premise that this has to be a major fundraising a revenue stream for the township. And I'll speak to the changes at the golf course later.
Excuse me, could I ask you a question, Harry? So would you be willing to have your taxes increased to cover the costs of operating the golf course?
But do you increase it for increasing?
I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. It doesn't,
For the managing of the park and all the costs of mowing and all the things with the park?
Of course you do. But all that's been done. All I'm saying is, do you feel and do you think the community feels that it would be okay to increase taxes to offset the deficits that is run by the golf course?
If there is a deficit, yes, it's a recreation site for the
Okay.
community. So
Okay,
yes, it should be.
okay.
But if managed properly, I don't think it will run a deficit. And I think you're going in the right. We don't have any objection about increasing greens fees slightly, although the greens fees here are already higher than some of the competitors in the county. But we'd like you to make money, but not by selling off parkland for a Sheets or whatever's.
We
planned.
wouldn't be selling any land. It would still be part of the we wouldn't have any a lease for any business that would go in there.
Before you, oh, good, you put the map back up. When I look at the red line, the top red line, it looks like you're considering everything right up to the current gravel and macadam parking lot.
Yeah, the way that those parcels are set up, yeah, those do.
When I was getting taller.
So the parking lot is not as shown on there.
No, but this is about where the current, here's the back of the restaurant or the entrance to the restaurant. There's a little bit of parking here, and then the red line is drawn that we're talking about all the land. I guess my concern is if the restaurant goes good and other things happen, where do you expand into? If you're, now you did say you're pursuing leasing this land, which is good, but once it gets developed into something, there's already parking problems here. Where do we expand into if we include that land the whole way up to there? Or is that just like a maximum that you would talk a little bit about?
Phil, yeah, so that is actually going to be discussed on one of the other agenda items for blue collar and the parking lot and the driving range.
One of the things I'd say is perhaps a new use or a different use would use less of the parking lot than what you see up there. You know, this is just up here conceptually, that's all. You know, there's an awful lot that needs to be considered and evaluated, no doubt.
Mr. Ford, did you sign in by chance? Thank you.
Kyle Craybill, 944 Indians Range Drive. I attended last meeting and was a big proponent of the miniature golf course. I remember from my childhood having one, and I think we kind of agreed if managed better or managed by somebody, you could make a go of a miniature golf course again now. I had some time to process some items that we discussed and some things that were thrown out at the last meeting. I guess from what I'm hearing and maybe just to clarify, there seems to be a lot of fluid situation going on here, which I guess, you know, we all have our reservations about all of that too. I guess my question would be, has the township and the rec authority, do they have like a 5-year plan for how they see the golf course, what they see in the future, you know, phase by phase plan, anything like that? I know the authorities still semi-new, so it's kind of hard to jump in there and just say, yes, let's do this, this, and this by 2035. That's very hard to do. I guess I threw out there the last time, and I did check, and I don't know if you understood where I was coming from, Mr. Lundy, or not. I did throw out there I don't even know a venue that you could actually get, I'm gonna say marriage at. I did talk to Blue Collar. They don't have anything where you can actually get married at. They have places where you can hold a reception and a catering and, you know, after golf tournaments and great and everything like that. I just proposed that you maybe even look having a venue that can seat 150, 200 people. That would open up catering for blue collar too. Then again, you come back to the parking. So there's snags in that as well. I just think that maybe before we start throwing suggestions out there, maybe, you know, have a plan as to where you see this going and where you see it coming from. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because if we change the zoning on that to commercial and blue collar the next day comes to us and says, hey, we're interested in leasing that land because we want to put a barn in there or some sort of structure so we can hold a wedding there and we'll pay you X, Y, Z. I mean, I think we'd all be okay with that. We can't do that right now because it's not zoned commercial. We can't do anything with that land except for, you know, we can't entertain any business ideas until that's changed. So I think that's a great idea. And if blue collar had the capacity to do that or wanted to do that, I think that would be an easy discussion for us because they're already on the property operating. They already have a lease with us. So, and we're not just putting it out to the highest bidder. You know, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing there is, you know, in flow with what the community wants. And if that's kind of the best idea, then we certainly would want to explore that. So thank you.
And our charge originally was to assist the township in offsetting the deficit that the golf course was running. And we've been able to accomplish that goal. And when we do meet, we do hold regular discussions about long-term goals for whether it's the golf course. And now we're just beginning to look at the whole property. And to go back to the first question that was asked about putting the cart ahead of the horse, we didn't want to come to you and say, well, we've got a great plan for a bank that's going to go here. What do you think? We'd rather come back and say, okay, here, this is a great idea. We have a wedding venue. Have we thought about that? No, but it gives us something else to consider. So we didn't want to be rash. We didn't want to jump into something without getting the community's input. And that's why we are doing this evening.
I think to answer a question that you had directly, do we have a plan? Right now, I can only tell you what we know. We don't anticipate any major changes to the golf course in the foreseeable future, probably in the next 3 to 5 years. What you see is what you get. Perhaps we may need a new pro shop. The facility there and some locker rooms might need some improvement. We have a long-term lease with Blue Collar. Blue Collar is not going anywhere. They've developed a successful business. They're doing well. I think it's been a big positive for the community, and we have that going in the right direction. And then the other thing is that we think we want to develop, and we probably need another revenue stream, I would say, equal to what we're getting from Blue Collar. But beyond those general long-term focuses, we really, it is pretty much wide open.
Golf course and the blue collar is cash flowing now. What's the big rush? Get another revenue stream.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say golf since the pandemic hit has been back in a very big way. And what we're trying to do is while things are going well, make sure that we can continue to increase cash flow, because whether it's some sort of catalyst that changes the play at Four Seasons, I mean, I think 2020, 2021 and 2022 so far, year over year have continued to grow. At some point that's going to slow down. And at some point the numbers are going to get closer, expenses and revenue are going to tighten. So we want to make sure that we're not at the mercy of weather, public interest in golf. If they put another course in somewhere else that would take play away from Four Seasons, any of these different things that could happen that make our numbers a lot tighter. We want to make sure that we have a diversified stream of revenue from golf, restaurant, and then whatever the XYZ is on the third.
Don't you get more revenue as Blue Collar gets more revenue?
It goes up.
Yes.
Yeah, in the contract, it goes up. And at some point we're getting 1%, I think, of their revenue, right?
In year 5, we're getting a percentage of the revenue. Yes. Year 5. Right. Right. The rent, it has increased from the beginning and will continue to increase up until year 5. But right now, we're not getting the percentage. The other thing I'd say is there's no doubt we're going to have to do something to the facilities, the golf facilities there at the golf course. At the end of the day, that's going to cost $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, and we'll need to pay for that. And again, if we don't have revenue coming in, that's going to come out of taxpayers' pocket. And the board has made a decision, for right or wrong, the board has made a decision that we want that to be at a minimum revenue exceeding expenses and generating some income that we can do other things. Maybe even reduce taxes, who knows?
Is the sod farm and the acreage back there still under the recreation part?
No.
That's under
uh,
the control of the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah,
It's under the control of the Board of Supervisors right now. It could be something,
It was part of golf course facility originally.
no, I don't think so.
It's a separate deed.
Right.
It could have been purchased at the same time. It's possible.
and we've explored that, and I think the Board of Supervisors has been reluctant to do anything with the sod farm because of potential future plans for that land. I mean, we talked about having a driving range over there. Everybody loved that idea, but yeah, we didn't.
And moneymaker.
We talked about it at several meetings.
And we'll continue to.
Yeah, so.
What's your thought about that?
I think that I've been a township resident long enough that when I moved here, the Weiss Market wasn't there.
Driving range, right, it
and
was.
That land you sold, because I think that was the driving range for this golf course. That was unmanned. You didn't have to send anybody over there to mind it during the day, other than to run the ball machine once or twice a day. There was a ball machine, and there were people there from the time I left, before I left for work in the morning, there were people over there. on the
Mrs.
driving range.
McMullen, if you could speak into the microphone, a couple that it won't get picked up by Zoom. Sorry.
I was just saying that I moved here to that home in 1992. And there was a driving range where the Weiss Market stands today. There were people there from sunup until after dark. And there weren't any lights on it. No, so you didn't have to light it at night. But there were people there till dusk and almost dark, hitting golf balls. That had to be a moneymaker. So I just think that kind of an operation could happen now on the other side of the golf course.
You're right, he could. The guy that closed that driving range, he opened up the new one. So there's two mistakes.
He opened up what?
The new one. It's the same guy that, on one hand, you had a successful driving range, somebody closed it. Somebody made a decision to close it, sell off the land. And again, I'm not sure who that was or how that happened. That's obviously West Hempfield. So I'm not sure whether it was Garen who sold it off or what, who knows? But which brings us to the driving range we have. And all the use that driving range gets. It's unbelievable how much use that gets. Yeah, right, that's exactly right. So,
But it's a useless driving range.
right,
It was still conceived from the get-go.
well, okay.
And as Eddie.
But now.
But I think we're
trying to
looking
figure out-
ahead right now. We're trying to look ahead, not look back.
Right.
I appreciate everything that we're talking about, but that's behind us now.
But you can't, all I'm saying is you can't compare the non-use of that driving range from the use of a real driving range.
No, understood. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment and address some of the concerns of the audience regarding the cart before the horse scenario. I, in fact, had the same feeling initially, and we discussed it at a meeting. And at the following meeting, we had some experts here, and we got some legal and some market advice. And the bottom line was, as I recall, that we were advised that in order to generate the most interest and optimize the process of selecting a tenant, that what we should look at is recommending to the township that they rezone the tract to a zoning classification that would allow the greatest number of uses. That would make it most appealing to a potential developer where a variety of uses could be considered. The other thing to keep in mind is that the ultimate decision under rezoning will not lie with the authority. The ultimate decision under rezoning will lie with the township. And I'm not trying to pick on Tom by any means, but we can't change the zoning ordinance in this township. Only the supervisors can do that. So.
I'm Chris Hausner. So now I understand that better. And I guess my question would be, once that takes place, assuming that the supervisors do that and rezone it, what's next? Do you put out a proposal that you want to develop this property and allow people to come to the authority with their ideas? Or, I mean, and how, I mean, maybe this is just part of what we're talking about tonight. How do you narrow that down? I mean, I know up at the airport, for example, they had a corner of 501, and I guess it's Airport Road. And they decided, well, we want a convenience store there. And then they put, but they were able to narrow down the use. I mean, and is that, apparently you've had input from experts, probably one of whom, several of whom, collaborated to get the drawing, which I understand is a placeholder. Nevertheless, it's an idea of what can be done.
right.
So is that the idea, that you're going to try to narrow down what the proposed use would be and then ask for proposals?
Yeah, so if it's rezoned, what we would then do is go to not a developer, but like Bennett Williams.
Marketing
Yeah, like a Bennett Williams or somebody like that. Basically just say, we have 2 parcels that are zoned commercial that we would like you to go out and,
Market.
yeah. So they come to us with ideas and then we can decide what would be best for the township and be best for the authority, so.
And can I ask, you referenced a long-term lease with Blue Collar. What is the term of that lease?
Right now it's 10 years with an option for additional years.
Okay. Thank you.
Should also point out that the exhibit here was just one of several that we reviewed, and these were prepared well in advance of any thoughts about any specific meetings to discuss the property. It was solely from the standpoint of trying to identify some potential concepts that people could look at. So by no means are we locked into what's shown there. We had other options that we looked at also, including a couple of options that included an outdoor pavilion and more of a nature area. Again, the final decision will be made by whoever is going to develop that ground, and what they bring to the table as far as an offer about what the lease payments are going to be.
We own the turf farm. The township owns the turf farm and the property there. We lease it to Hummer to grow grass.
It's not a termed lease. It does have conditions that for termination, so that he doesn't lose his crop.
Harry Worth again. I just say you're limiting yourself. I happen to be the teacher who took Amos Hurst's place at Hempfield when I taught geography and earth science. And I've taken some geography courses in land use. And I think you own more land than that out to the turf. I think you need to get some professional advice about how to use the whole property, not just this corner. And I think you might find that it's a very rich resource for the township and its community. And you can probably get that free of charge by going to Millersville and asking one of the profs to give that as a final exam. That's how my final exam was done, at somebody's farm.
You have any ideas?
But you're sure, you're just.
Don't look at the buildings up there. That's not what one of the first meetings that we had as an authority, we had a developer come and give us basically ideas to what we could put there. And we decided that we wanted to work on the restaurant and banquet business first before we really did anything else. What you see in there, the concept was for a gas station and a medical facility, which that was their idea. We didn't really vote on that or really explore anything else. And then we pivoted to kind of look at our own operation first. So whatever you see there, that's not what we're thinking. Again, that's just a visual representation of the 2 plots of land that we're talking about. There's also a parcel off of the 14th Nisley Road track that we looked at talked about potentially putting baseball fields in there. That was the site for the cell tower that didn't really happen. But we thought that as far as development, that this was the first 2 plots of land as our next step for what we wanted to do. I mean, that could be a Christmas tree farm. I mean, like, you see the buildings there, that could be anything. So just keep that in mind, that we're looking for ideas. We're not looking to sell you these 2 ideas.
And the challenge becomes trying to deal with the challenge that we've been given, the charge we've been given from the township, trying to consider recreational use versus the commercial use. And like I said, this is just we're at the very beginning stages of this. And I think, like I said, meetings like this have been very helpful for us and will continue to be. So I don't think we're shutting the door on any other opportunities. We're just getting started. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment?
I'm Larry Shields. I live at 3004 Gloucester Street. And like this lady over here, I've been in the township in the same house for 32 years. If the zoning changes to commercial, I like the idea, at least the thought of the idea of a multi-use type of facility that people in the township can use. And if it goes commercial, would it be possible to exclude certain things? Like, I don't think we need another Sheetz or Turkey Hill or a 7-Eleven. I mean, is it possible to do that once if it goes commercial?
Very difficult to do that. Once you decide on a zoning classification, if a business comes in and it fits that classification, it's almost impossible. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a caveat to that in the fact that there is more control because the township owns the property. So the township and the recreation authority would negotiate with a potential user and they would choose the commercial use or whatever the use might be. So that in that regard is the control. But a pure rezoning, there is no control of use. It's based on the list.
Before we or you guys or whoever does it votes on a commercial usage, that discussion has to be had with people in the township because the ball's in the air at that point. We lose our control and then we have a Sheetz.
Well, that's why we have
Balance.
the monthly meetings here to talk about things like that. So if it's rezoned and then every month we get a proposal from somebody, we meet, talk about it, and at the end, open it up for public comment. So if it is rezoned and then we start the process of what we want to put there, that will be an agenda item on our agenda. I mean, probably for until both properties are built.
So the cart and horse thing again, if we rezone it, then we lose control.
No,
No, we put a recommendation into the Board of Supervisors as far as what we want to have as an operator there.
Okay.
They would then
at the end
either,
of the day, you have the township and the recreation authority has to enter into a lease for whatever user it is.
Okay.
So if it's a Sheetz and the board or the recreation authority doesn't want a Sheetz, they won't lease to them.
Okay. Okay. So we do maintain control at that point.
yeah, they can't, I mean, you can't just have the highest bidder come in and whatever it is, they just put it there. We decide whether or not we want to do that or not.
I get the need for the money-making component to it, but at the same time, it's got to be, I mean, we should be looking at something for the people in the township to use. Not another restaurant or a gas station or something like that. Some multi-use wedding venue, somebody mentioned. There's got to be a lot of opportunities, maybe even something sports related. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to clarify that even though this is a municipal authority and the township is a municipality, there is no obligation to get the highest price, so to speak.
No,
So in that sense, yeah, it does give you more control, but it also gives you a lot more options. I mean, somebody said something about a Christmas tree farm and I'm thinking, well, that would be fine, but that's not going to bring in as much money as something else. And then somebody, we, all you have to decide what it is you want. And, you can do whatever you want, but I think it's best that before you get the realtor and just say, go market this, that you have some sense. And I guess that's why you're having these meetings, to try to have some sense of where you want to go.
exactly.
Okay.
And again, we don't want to have a specific idea that we come here for rezoning. We want to open it up to figure out what different ideas are out there.
I'd like to make a brief comment also, just to explain to the audience about the main purpose, why the authority was formed. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but my understanding is that municipal code, the township cannot enter into any lease agreements. And they must take the low bid if you go out for a formal proposal. Whereas the Municipal Authorities Act is a little bit different. And authorities are allowed to lease property and do not necessarily have to take the lowest or the highest bid. So it does really give the municipality a lot more flexibility than when you have a mandated requirement, which pretty much handcuffs the township with what they can and can't do. Did I say that right, Tom?
Wait a
To
minute.
point out one more thing, and that is if you do anything on that parcel lot 2, you're going to spend money to relocate the maintenance shed, which shows on this diagram anyway, as losing part of the practice area next to the golf course.
All of which we've discussed over the years. The maintenance shed would have to be moved. Depending on who comes in, we would try to build that into the lease so that they would, I think we even looked at what the cost of a new maintenance shed would be. And it was 6 figures or more.
Which kind of offsets some of the revenue from wherever you're getting in there.
Short term.
The one specific recommendation we got from our advisors, I'll say, is that they recommended that again, the maintenance shed should be relocated to optimize potential uses and potential revenue from the site, because it sits right in the middle of where it doesn't need to be anymore. So that was the guidance that we got from our advisors, to have it relocated.
And we're not, obviously not moving it until we decide what we want to do. The other comment I'd make is, don't look at it as 2. It could be 1 track. Okay, that's the other side. What you see up here is just the red lines. That's all you should see.
Answer my question. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to offer a comment at this time? On behalf of the authority, thank you very much. We appreciate the comments.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move down, or is there anybody on Zoom? I can't see Cindy if there was.
No, there's not.
Okay,
other
I
than
thought I
Jim.
saw someone's iPad on there, so.
Same mouses. That's Don Beckville from the golf course. That's Jim. And that's the Betsy Schiffler from the township.
Okay, gotcha. Moving to the committee reports, the lease negotiating and real estate committee. So Dan and Mike are out today. The PDF that Blue Collar sent over as far as their deck and what they want to accomplish with the deck, you should all have a copy. Mike was going to get into this and told Kevin and Rob that, probably by September, we could give them an idea as far as, how it's going to change their lease, what we're going to have to do as far as shifting things around on the practice facility if they end up doing this to this scale. And then when they could actually start construction. So just kind of putting it out there that we don't have a full report from them yet, but they did have estimates and things. And what we have to do is, and what I guess what they have to do is figure out who's going to pay for what and how it's going to change the lease. So that's just a quick update. Mike and I talked on the phone this morning, so.
Could I ask that somebody take this diagram and superimpose their current square footage over it? I'm assuming,
We'd ask them to do that too. Yeah.
you know what I mean, to get, so we get an idea of what's changing.
Yeah, I think their current square footage is just over 14,000 in the lease.
But that includes the banquet facilities, right?
Correct. The actual restaurant versus what you have there.
I mean, and we don't need to get into it right now, but is the deck, this area to the left?
No, it's the kind of circle right here.
So all this is the existing facility?
Yep. I think except for where it says band. That would be added.
Yeah, everything going out from Spring Lounge, you see the tree. That's what that is. Everything going out to the left of that would be brand new.
Oh, I took this as everything in shaded as deck. This is nothing indoors.
This is indoors, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is all outdoors.
Yeah, that's,
That's,
I mean-
that's the impression I got.
Oh, I thought this was an existing building and then this circle thing, that's a tree.
That's a
No,
tree.
that's a tree.
Oh.
That is a
The
tree
deck
you're
is
looking at.
6,157
on the
square
site
feet.
visit,
Oh,
so.
my word,
Yeah.
that's it.
So when we looked at this during the site visit, what you're looking at, I know Dan, Mike and I all felt that it was something that was doable.
Yeah.
But the question became, Mike was working on more of the figures and the lease. But when we saw this and what they were proposing, we were pretty much on board with the idea and the concept.
Gotcha.
Can you enlighten the rest of us about where the deck is going?
So we don't know yet as far as what they're actually can construct, but the deck would go over, they'd have to move the one putting green and over where the cart return is, right?
Yes.
So that it would go over the cart return out that side of the building. And then where, I guess, not the chipping green, but the putting green is.
There was one of the putting greens, right?
Yeah.
That would have to be moved, but it was all overhead. So you'd still have the cart return path and going down and unfortunately, I don't think we have something we can show you as we're just looking at it. That's not going to do any of you any good, but
Cindy, can you put the PDF up or is it?
Working on it.
Okay. It's all concept. So, and the committee that's working on that, unfortunately, both of them are out today. But that's something that Blue Collar brought to us and we haven't decided whether or not we want to do that or not.
So we do, which one of the two putting greens?
Well, they would just, they would relocate it, which I think Jim said is wouldn't be too difficult to just put it on the other side of the deck.
the putting green closest to the large tree would be the one that would be impacted by this discussion. There was a lot of discussion about that too. And all of this, as you're beginning to picture, it's all beginning to roll together. What we want to do with the front parcels, what we want to do with as Blue Collar continues to grow, what we want to do with parking. So it's all very fluid right now. This is a proposal that the restaurant brought to us for consideration. As somebody who was on the site visit, we did ask that, could they superimpose what the current use is over top of what their hopes are, so we could get a better sense. And we just don't have that this evening.
And what we'd like, I think what they discussed as well was paving that, the gravel lot and then adding additional parking in place of the driving range. But we have a couple of meetings that we still have to hash out the details.
Yeah, as you can see here, all we have is a design. We've had design and discussion, but there's a lot to go through over the next 2 months.
Just a quick question, are those meetings where you guys discuss?
Yes, everything that we'll discuss during a regular monthly meeting of the authority, which we will certainly invite the public and you can hear everything that's going on. Yes.
But we have committee meetings that go and meet with like blue collar to kind of get the details about what they want to do. And then they negotiate as far as like what the lease looks like. And
And we'll present that
then
all
they-
to everybody, right?
during this part of the agenda, that's when they present it to the board and then we open it up for discussion. So,
Challenged.
and I don't think we had anything else for the lease committee. Any other questions or comments for the lease committee? I guess nobody, Steve's the only one here to field those.
Lucky me.
So I'll move on to the finance and operations committee. I don't think we have an update since last meeting as far as the contracts and stuff for the,
Sorry, no, they're still under review. We're hoping for September 1, so they should be at your August meeting.
do
for
we get
approval.
any idea from the auditors if they had significant issues?
Auditors have no issue. It's basically sitting on my desk
Okay,
due to vacation schedules. It's
Yeah.
state.
that's fine. I don't think we have any action items for this meeting. Old business, goals and objectives for the golf course. I think we had quite a bit of discussion about that already, unless anybody has something that they want to add. So I'll move on to the golf operations update. Jim, if you want to go through what you have prepared, please. You're on mute, Jim.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So we had another good month, solid month. Weekends much busier than in the past. New pricing is paying off with the higher revenues that we're bringing in. Course is doing outstanding with the lack of rain. Joe and his team are doing a great job out there. Just for the month of June, we only had 1.25 inches of rain, so we're using a lot of irrigation water for sure. And then as it's stated there, Will, the golf services manager, he had his last day on July 6th. He's going on to his next step in his career and wish him the best. He did a great job for us. And at the same time, we've hired John Sanchez from Mannheim. He started Monday and he's going to be a great addition to the team at the golf course, and looking forward to working with him.
Is he doing lessons as well, Jim?
He is not doing lessons just because the plans with that area. He will be doing the junior camp, so continue to offer that to the community.
Thank you. Any questions for Jim on?
Could you give us some idea of what Will's responsibilities will be, or John's responsibilities will be?
Yeah, they're going to be the same as what William was doing. That's running the golf tournaments, the junior camp. It's going to be assisting in the pro shop, helping out in there as well, and the cart guys. I can provide his job description. It's the same as what Williams was, or Betsy can.
Is he going to be full-time or hourly?
He's full-time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you know if Joe has received any of the equipment yet?
He has not. They keep pushing it back on him, and now I think we're looking at September, October at the earliest.
What was the original quote? Was it for,
I believe June was one piece of equipment, and then I thought July was and then they pushed it back to August, and now I think, like I said, they're pushing back to the fall now.
are all the older pieces of equipment holding up well enough that you're gonna be able to?
Yeah, knock on wood, but yes, they are.
Okay, good.
We also have a recall in progress for the new golf carts. Jim might enlighten you, but an arm,
Yeah, the A-arm, there's two A-arms on the front of the golf carts, and they're failing. So essentially, if you just hit a curb or gently hit another golf cart, they're just breaking apart. So the Easy Go has recalled them, and they're coming out. We've had 6 carts so far where they've had to replace them. But once they get the new parts in, they're going to do the entire fleet. They've got 3 other courses in the area that they've got to do as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Jim? All right, we will move on to new business.
don't have any.
Did you want to talk about the simulators at all? Or?
We still just have the simulators. We're just gonna have to make a decision at some point, the direction we want to go. We have the pricing, we have the layout. It's gonna, a new TrackMan costs between $21,500 and $25,000. We're talking about building it ourselves. We've all seen the spacing. I think we all want to do it. It's just a question now of pulling the trigger, and perhaps we want to save that for next month when Dan and Mike are here. We have the full contingent.
Okay. Any questions?
You're talking about the second floor in the bar.
Anywhere on the property, if we want to build it ourselves. I guess we'd have to get a quote from them, but they included that, but I guess that depends on if we have a space ready to go or.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
But we haven't decided on a space at this point.
no.
Okay.
All right. Any other new business?
Just one thing that I would want to bring up. We are going to have some very preliminary discussions about the sod farm and perhaps converting a portion of it to continued recreational use by HYA baseball. Very preliminary discussions at this point, but we are looking to that tract of property for their use, possible use, I should say. Nothing definite. We've just started the discussions. Park and Rec, the Township Park and Rec is going to be reviewing it, their plans or a plan Friday. Just want to get on the record on that, just so everybody knows. The sod farm. Knowlt and Church. It's a corner of Knowlt and Church.
So you're talking about another use of recreation,
Mhm.
not a use by the golf course.
That's correct.
Which that's not part of the,
The whole track there or a portion.
Probably not. Certainly not for their use exclusively. We'd be looking at other things there. I think, we could go the usual tennis courts, pickleball courts, maybe batting cages. Yeah, or a driving range, sure. Don't know at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe. Okay. You know, you could. Yeah, sure. You could do that. I'm not even sure how big that parcel is,
It's 50 acres.
50 acres. Yeah.
Any other new business? Minutes from the previous meeting. So
I'll make a motion to accept, adopt.
I will second. Anyone have any issues or comments about the minutes of the previous meeting? All in favor of approving the minutes from June 22nd, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. I will now open it up for public comment. Again, please just state your name for the minutes of our next meeting.
Really do believe you need to look at a land use plan. And we heard that the changes that have been brought about at the golf course came because of the lawsuit and parking. Become as friends of the golf course. This is like our club, this is our course. I've been playing there since 1965, maybe a little before. And it's in great shape. Management's doing a great job. But the changes, the rush to make it a profit center brought about changes that were deleterious to mostly to the elderly, and I would imagine that more than 25 golfers. Dr. Smitty play on Wednesday with 120 seniors and for us to have to carry golf clubs the way it made a flag drop area, this is the only place we play where the golf carts can't go to the car. You can go to the car. Now, the video showed that there were 35 golfers from New York were here. They were definitely super seniors, because they struggled to get their golf clubs to the bag drop and then walk down. It's just not healthy. You think a lawsuit for a car running into a cart is bad. Wait till somebody has a heart attack. I will tell you that Tuesday when I played, because I was leaving, a guy coming in, I tell the story, this guy was carrying his bag around like this, struggling just to walk through the park, the bag. And he was breathing so hard. Are you going to be okay? I just got out. This is my first time this year. I have COVID. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. They didn't think I was going to make it, but he made it. He wanted to go out, but he had to lug his bag. The group of 35 from New York, I should have a video of that. Somebody's going to die carrying their bag. It could be me. I have the heaviest bag in the world, which I bought from Jim, the pro shop.
But what a way to go.
Pardon? Yeah.
What a way to go.
That'd be a great way to go, wouldn't it? I don't know what the guys would do with the body. That's what worries me. We didn't think this out very well. The people that made the change with the backgrounds. We have an elderly clientele, no route to the unpaid lot that's up there. But we have enough land, we could do a route to have them drive up there and get to their cars and not go in the paved part or some other limitation. Or put flags on carts to all these old people, so they can go to the parking lot and cars can see the flag. Or in some places, they have bag carts that take the bags down to the pro shop and put them on the bag. There are other options to pull this off so that we don't have traffic. But right now, the carts block the exits. You say the deck is going to go over the cart?
We don't know any of the specifics about that. Yeah.
Well, I gotta tell you what. Our people can't walk to that bag drop when we're done playing. There are carts lined up 3 wide blocking the whole path. They have to walk back down and then go around the putting greens and walk all the way back in. Something needs to be done. The other problem with the course that we love is it's extremely understaffed. We have one guy working the pro shop in the morning when we check in, who has to run around and get the carts and bring them back. The other day when I checked in, there were 15 guys lined up and the carts outside. So she had to take those guys and, so it's, you can get people being marshals and starters, which we don't have, on a volunteer basis, and we had them enforcing. But then, usually volunteers are given free go. All the courses do. And it's not gonna impact the revenue stream. But there are people who will work and do those jobs, some of them thankless. They'll make like 3 jobs, 2 or 3 or 4 guys. Volunteer staff. Another sore spot of the changes. Somebody put it in a. You need to decide, are you running a golf course or are you running a restaurant? Now, the restaurant's wonderful, but they can't dictate who goes in the parking lot. Can't. I mean, something needs to be done. And the other day when it was 90 degrees, we finished 9 holes and went to get water in the snack bar and it was closed. The sign that says closed. So we had to get water from the, you couldn't go in and buy water, but that takes too long for people checking. You get water from the fountain that's on the wall of the pro shop. But that was off all winter. And apparently the cash flow wasn't enough to replace the refrigeration, so all you get is warm water. But never mind, we got water, warm water, and we drove all the way around, finished 9 bar, and of course, the snack bar was still closed. The restaurant's closed on Monday. We learned later that one of the managers, owners, came down and checked the green sheets. How many people do you have? Oh, that's not enough. I'm not going to open the snack bar. You can't do that if you're running a golf course. And it doesn't open until 10 o'clock. What time do the 120 tee off? 8. 120 people could be buying breakfast. There should be something in the lease with blue collar that they're required to keep the snack bar open when the golf course is open. That's a suggestion, and maybe you could negotiate that. You know, because of the understanding, there's no water on the course. That means if somebody gets thirsty out there and doesn't have a Yeti along like I do now all the time, and most of our guys do, they don't have any way in the hot temperature to get a drink. You think you'd have a lawsuit now? That would be a major lawsuit. The other courses provide water. Now, Craig Hall used to run out with coolers every morning in a different location. But then because of the health hazard, somebody threatened to sue because of Tanglewood provides water and towels. Hoover's Boat has big green coolers full of ice, and there are bottles of water in there, 3 or 4 different locations. And an honor jar, I don't know, $7 a bottle. Guys are willing to need to get water on the course somewhere. And to change 3 holes on the course, and it made the course better for us. But we could have made it better. It could have been a grease like nothing crossed out. But meet with Jim and Joe and discuss these changes and how they would impact our group, at least of the elders. But we're proud of the course, and we hope Jim keeps steering it in a direction that will consider what the elderly have to put up with to play. I can tell you this, I'm 83. If I have to continue to carry my bag, it will shorten the number of years and the number of times. I don't think we will.
We don't want that, Harry.
No.
And I appreciate your comments. Most, if not all, valid. I don't want to speak for the people up here, but we'll find a way to fix the cart issue. We'll do something on that. What? I don't know. We got to get with Jim. The other thing I'd point out on blue collar, we don't run the restaurant. They do. And we don't want to run the restaurant. We don't want to tell them what to do. In any way, shape, or form. They've made quite an investment in the property. Um, As far as hours are concerned, I'm disappointed also that the snack bar isn't open more than it is. And that's something that we'll try to work with them on in the future. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon or quickly, but you make good points. Appreciate it.
Joe Corey, and Harry covered most of what I want. Course is almost like a big super golf. People who have had knee replacements, hip replacements, aren't carrying them the most. It's flat. There are not a lot of elevated tees or elevated greens, so it's not important. Whole thing with cars, a parking lot, but it's like. I've seen people at this point, a guy that must have been 40 years old, stop a guy carrying his golf bag and say, you should not be carrying that. Or is that? Temperature, you dealt with hot weather a lot. It's important for seniors to be behind the air attention. Four seasons even for bits players that bring their own cooler. That's it, right on back. So coolers, or alcoholic beverages are not supplying any cooler. Not allowing people to bring coolers. Send a bad message. It's as if nobody's looking at this whole thing from the golfers. Yeah, like a lot of the stuff that we've done. Needs to be done with somebody looking at it. Yeah, public copies of that.
Thank you.
Last thing. This heavy golf bag, we call a rain barrel. Jim sold me last fall. So my car van right to where the bag drop is, and I quickly take the bag out, I put it back. And then when I come back, I park it there and get it off the cart. And while I was there, a guy backed in and T-boned my van. And I just want to know, do I send the body shop bill to Jim? Actually, I told the guy, it's a 2003 van. But it's the kind of thing that can happen even with the bag drop.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment this evening? I thought so.
I would first say that I would echo everything that Harry said, and Joe, I agree with everything you said. I can't carry my bag. And I've done the same thing that he was doing, backing up to the bag drop and putting it on there. Now I found another way, but I'm not gonna tell you what that is. Anyway, the bag drop is a real issue for all the older ladies that play on Thursday mornings. Not so much the 9-hole ladies. We have some people that come all the way down from Sonic Village to play the 9-hole. They don't want to carry bags. Nobody wants to carry their golf bag around the clubhouse. And I'm not sure why that's an issue for us to take the carts into the parking lot. It's not an issue at Overlook, which is another municipally owned golf course, or any place else. I don't know of any place in the county that you can't take the golf cart to your car and put the bag on the cart from there. I agree with the water on the course, although I usually take. Well, nobody's told me I can't yet. I know it's in the golf cart, but I'm taking the water on the course, but I need the water. And yeah, it'd be nice to have marshals. I heard you say that Jim said that Don Sanchez started on Monday, and he said he was gonna have the same responsibilities as William, but he's not doing lessons because right now there's no place for the lessons, or I'm not sure why, but I don't know another golf course in Lancaster County that doesn't have a pro that can give lessons. And I heard him say that they were going to have the junior camps, but I don't know what Mr. Sanchez's qualifications are, whether he has a teaching license. I don't know, but it would be nice to have somebody who can help this. And club regripping. I had Will all set up to regrip at least 3 more of my clubs, and all of a sudden he was gone, and I never knew he was leaving. But I talked to him the week before about regripping clubs.
Jim, can you speak to that at least if he's PGA qualified? You're on mute, Jim.
Yeah, no, nah, he is not.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment this evening?
Well, they also need someone to run the shop too. And I mean, they need people to check in. I think Will did a lot of the carts and, you check people out to get them out there. I think when he left, Jim was doing all that. So he just needs someone to help. At least that's what Jim gave us an update last meeting on that. So. Any other public comment? I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make my favorite motion.
I will second that motion. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is so adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jim.